Hey guys, welcome back to Unleashed. And as always, remember, we are the Resistance. Wow. What a crazy, I think the craziest week of all of our lives, possibly, unless you're old enough to remember JFK and, Reagan and all that stuff. Wow. I don't even have to tell you what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I got home. Where were we? We were on vacation. Eric, I haven't seen you for like 2.5 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, man.
Because I did one of the podcasts from home, and maybe I even did two. I'm trying to remember because I was on the road a lot. But, we've been kind of catching up on, like we always do at the beginning of these, episodes about, the physical fitness stuff we talk about, the bike riding and the exercising and all that. But this week was exercising, I think, my patience.
Yeah.
Because, dude, after what I just saw a week ago Saturday, you'll hear about it today. Sorry, this is going to be one of those episodes, and I'm kind of glad you're here. You're probably some of you might get really ticked off at what I have to say. Some of you are going to be going, yeah, it's about time. Really passionate about what we're going to talk about. But, Eric, where were you when you found out about the assassination attempt?
Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Oh, wow. Were you anywhere near radio or television or like your phone or?
Yeah, somebody sent me a message and I looked it up. And actually I was just outside of Gatlinburg now I think about it. I was at a Buc-ee's. I was in a Buc-ee's parking lot.
You were one of those, like one of the episodes we talked about earlier, right? Isn't that the big, massive gas station thing?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, there's one just kind of as you're leaving the area. So yeah, I was at a Buc-ee's when I found out.
So let me ask you a question. How did it affect, this is maybe like a 2-part or maybe even 3-part. How did it affect you when you first heard about it? And then how did it affect, your family and since then?
Man, it was just unnerving to me. I don't know how to explain it. I don't get really shaken up about stuff, and I don't get overly worried or nervous about things, but it shook me up, and I just thought, I cannot believe they let this happen.
Yeah.
So I didn't sleep great that night, and I went out and I bought some more ammo for my scar, which sucks because it's like $1.50 a round. But
yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't really know what the response should be. I just couldn't believe they let that happen.
What did you feel?
Just angry.
Yeah. Stacy, again, men, women created differently, but she felt the anger, but she had, when it happened, we were on our way to Indianapolis to go out to dinner, and she was on her phone. We got the message, got to the television as soon as we get to the restaurant, and we put it up. They didn't even know yet because it had just happened. It was like at 6:11 last Saturday, and they put it up on the screen, and everybody just like stops eating and they're watching it. And I will never forget some of the comments that I was hearing and seeing on social media pop up like within minutes. And one of them that really ticked me off was, it's too bad they missed.
Yeah.
And I knew in that moment, okay, so we're just kind of get into it. Stacy had, tears. I asked her, I said, babe, how are you feeling? She says, I'm afraid. She says, I'm worried. She goes, I feel doubtful for our nation. She goes, I do not trust our government. I do not trust this administration. And she said, I feel incredibly angry that they've been pulling the wool over our eyes for so long. And I'll explain that here in just a second. But, when the comment came out about it's too bad they missed, it crushed her. And that's just a reflection of what we have been seeing. If you're on social media, if you're watching, the media on all the different news stations, you're seeing it. You've been seeing it for a long time. And it's like, man, I think it was like in the 80s and 90s, Eric, I would watch, CNN was what was out there, ABC, NBC, the news, and you'd watch that. And through the 80s and 90s, Desert Storm and getting into the 2000s and 911. But then all of a sudden, I don't know what shifted, but, there's always been the extreme in each party, right? You've got the radical right, you've got the radical left that are way out here. And everyone's just trying to keep their head above water going, where do I fit in all this mix? What do I really believe? And it kind of got to where people don't know what they believe anymore. They had maybe a party they were associated with, or their parents were, and they've always voted that way, or whatever the reason was, they kind of get in that mold and they stop thinking for themselves. And that's what I have been watching happen. It's like people identify with a certain genre or culture, and so however that way goes, they go. And I've said on here many times, we have to think through what we're thinking. We have an entire generation now that is being told what to think and how to think. Or not how to think, but they're being told what to think. They need to be taught how to think. How do we take all the stuff that we're hearing? How do we even begin to siphon and sift through all the stuff? Because there are so many lies that are out there. And why do people lie? Because they want you to believe a certain way. Why would they do that? Because they want power. And so I was sitting there on the couch, and Stacy was, she was all teared up. She was literally shaking. Her hands were shaking. And I was watching, and I'm trying to think, I think it was Newt Gingrich that I saw come on the news shortly after this. We had just gotten home. We left from dinner immediately, went home. And he comes up, and he's visibly shaken, and he's on the edge of tears. His eyes were all teared up. He even admitted it. And I began to feel this sadness, but it was like encased in like a righteous anger. And when I saw this happen, I looked at Stacy and I said, I'm done. I am done. And what do I mean by that? That righteous anger. We talked about Braveheart on the podcast about a month ago. I did an episode or two on Braveheart. And when you saw Wallace at the very end of Braveheart, be put to death, and he yells out the words freedom at the very end of this, and all of the other people are kind of having to stand back and be quiet, right? Because they can be arrested and tortured or all these kind of things. I felt that moment. I know if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, let me say something. I do not know Donald Trump, obviously. I ran into his son one time, actually this last January. But I don't know if all the things or none of the things or any of the things are true that some people that don't like him will say. I can tell you this. I was not a fan of his personality, the way that he would talk to people, the way that he could be degrading sometimes and put someone down. I wasn't a fan of that, never was. But I have seen something change. And I don't know if it was after maybe being in the White House for 4 years and then not being in there and, all the stuff that was around all that. No one knows what to believe because I don't know that we will ever know everything that happened during that time period. But here's what I do know. And these are things that are factual. The thing that kind of put me over the top was watching the news and watching this for the last couple of years and watching a president that couldn't hold a sentence. The thing. I'm not trying to mock him. I'm saying he was in cognitive decline and has been for some time, which isn't his fault. But for his family, for the media, for his political party to see it, to know it, and to continue to keep covering it up, that's called deceit, and deceit is lying. That's why I'm done. Because I have been watching things happen that I went, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not true. Now, I'm not saying that both parties aren't guilty of stretching the truth or lying at times, but for an entire party, family, media, to continue to keep covering this up. Now, and here's why I'm so mad about that. Well, first of all, I don't like being lied to. And it's obvious now, it's been exposed, and that's why everything right now is in disarray. They don't, we just found out today, or was it, it was today or last night, that our president is not going to run for next term. They're trying to figure out what to do with all this stuff. I called it. I told Stacy, I said on Friday, Sunday, he's going to announce it. But we haven't even heard him announce it. We just saw a letterhead that wasn't even White House letterhead. I'm not trying to be conspiracy theory here, but I'm just saying, why? Why didn't he address the nation? Because it feels like the thing to do with a president who has gotten that position would be to allow him to announce it himself to the people who are waiting to hear from him. He has been a very quiet president. Remember when he was running, they always said he was in his basement. We never heard from him. That's one of the things that I didn't like about President Bush in his second term. First term, yeah, it was okay. Second term, I went, where did he go? Why is he not talking to the people much? And that is what has been happening. And so I think what we've been seeing is you have a former president who, and I don't know how to explain it, and it was happening before the assassination attempt last Saturday, but when he stood up after being shot in the ear with the blood on his face, and he tells everybody, hold on, and he puts his fist in the air, and he tells them to fight 3 times. And no one ran. No one took off running. They didn't stampede. They were looking for the shooters. I mean, the people got involved. That's what a leader does. When William Wallace came to those men who were ready to run, remember that? They had their pitchforks and rakes. They're afraid to do battle. He says, are you going to fight? He says, no, we will run and we will live. And then he gives them a name and he gives them a purpose. That's what I think we just saw. We've been hearing it, but we didn't know whether to believe what he was saying was true or not. But when you see someone stand up in the face of tyranny, laughs at death, looks it in the eye and says, you are not going to beat me. And he looks at all those people and he says, I am your president. I've never talked like this before. You've never heard on a podcast. You don't see it on social media. Something changed in me last week when this whole thing went down. And I can't be quiet about it. I know there's going to be some people out there that are going, oh, great. No, I'm not going to start making my podcast this way. But I think there is a time when something is so big that we have to look at it, and we have to look at it closely. All these lies and things that were going on that were not okay. I mean, think about this for a second. When you have that many people in cahoots and they're all trying to get you to believe and vote a certain way, what am I talking about? How many, was it 10 million illegals we've got now or whatever it is in the country? And I don't mean that as a derogatory. I'm saying they're here illegally. And we're told the border is closed. It hasn't been closed. We've all known it. We can see the numbers. Go to all these cities where everybody was shipped to. Now, does God care about those people? Absolutely he does. But he also, when you have laws within a government, he tells you to obey those things. And it's just gotten, the deceit is incredible. When you look at the last couple of years with all the rioting and the burning down of cities and the looting and the occupying cities and taking them over, what in the world? That was the summer of love or whatever they called it up there in the Northwest. When you've got drag queens who are allowed to dress the way they're dressing and dance and read books to children at the same time. Really? What in the heck has been going? You can tell I am done. I watched the judicial system become weaponized, going after a political rival. If someone is guilty of something, let them be convicted, right? But the way that everything has been going down, I've been watching this thing, watching the millions of illegals come across. Watched how we shut down our energy independence. What? And we allowed Iran to go ahead and start theirs back up again? Selling all this oil, making billions of dollars, which has helped fund Hamas and Hezbollah. You've got all this money going into this stuff. Their proxies are firing at our troops. How many attacks did we have? And we weren't going to do anything back. That's not leading a country. That's allowing terrorism to continue to happen. When I say, we are the resistance, I am talking about fighting against evil. I'm talking about knowing God, using his word. I'm not talking about violence in this, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about going after the lies. When I say we are the resistance, we have to unmask what is really happening here. I'm not trying to go down any kind of a conspiracy theory thing here. I'm saying we have to look at what we know are the facts that are in front of us. We did fund our enemies. We did shoot down our energy independence, which hurts the American worker. It hurts us at the gas pump. It hurts us when we go to get groceries. It hurts our incomes. I mean, there's everything. And I was working the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. That's actually where I ran into Donald Trump Jr. He came to our booth. But when you bring all these illegal immigrants, allow them to come in, you didn't bring. Well, I guess you kind of did when you don't shut the border down. That's kind of what you're doing. But when I was standing in my booth early one morning, and one of the electricians, who is a union worker, was working there with all the building stuff, and he was running some power lines for us. I asked him, we got into a conversation, and I said, what do you think about what's been going on? And he said, I'll be honest with you, and he said, he was black, and he said, our community is really upset about this. He said, we're struggling as it is to get decent jobs. And they're coming in and they're undercutting everything we're doing. They're getting free health care. They're getting college educations, they're getting cell phones, food, all this stuff. And he said, and our community has really been hurt by this. So you look at the damage that keeps going underneath underneath the next layer to the next layer to the next layer. They allowed all these anti-Israel protests to happen in our country, the anti-Semitism that's been going on. And then when you think about, so let me just kind of go down what I was saying about the lies earlier, and I'm ticked. The Russia hoax proved it was fake. That's not my opinion. That is exactly what they found out. You had Hunter's laptop. The entire media, everyone, including the president, says it was all Russia disinformation. They found out that it wasn't. You had the 2 impeachments, the quid pro quo that really happened. You had that with the Ukraine situation. It wasn't Trump. That was Hunter's father, going to bat for him in this, trying to get things, covered up. You got cocaine in the White House. There's just unbelievable amount of stuff. And I feel deceived, to be honest with you. And so when Stacy and I were talking, she said, I don't know who to trust anymore. And it left her shaken. I didn't feel the fear. I didn't feel the worry and the doubt. Do I care? Yeah, I care because I care about my kids. I care about my family. I care about, and just like anybody that is on this planet, God put them there. So I care about them, and I want them to know the truth. I want them to know God. I want them to have a good life. But one of the things that I do, and you know it on here, sometimes I help us to untangle the lies. How do we know if we're buying into a lie? How do we discover that? How do we uncover it? How do we restore the truth back to what we're believing in this? But we have been being fed lie after lie after lie. The debate, at that point, you couldn't cover it up anymore. And that's when everyone finally went, uh-oh, we've been busted here. No, you were busted a long time ago. Here's what happened. You destroyed trust. You destroyed trust with the American people because it's our country. Those who have been elected to go there are for the people. It's we the people. Not whatever party can convince you of something to try to keep power. That breaks trust. But when you can walk up to people and care about them, when you can call people up on their birthday as the president and saying, hey, I knew it was your birthday today, which I had heard about the other night that Trump had done. And again, it's kind of weird because I'm not a fan of of the old person that I knew, the old Trump. But I have become a fan of what I've been watching with my own eyes, what I've been listening to with my own ears and checking it in my heart. Is there still a long way to go for him? Probably, like there is with all of us. I'll never forget William Wallace when he goes to Robert the Bruce. Remember, Robert the Bruce in Braveheart ends up betraying Wallace. And he's weak. He's a compromiser. He'll do anything to keep power, right? He'll trade away his country back to the English just to keep power. But Wallace sees something in him. And he goes up to him at one point after they've met with the nobles and they've won this one big battle that Wallace led him in. And he takes him outside and he looks at Robert the Bruce. And he's trying to get him to rally his men. He says, he's telling him, if you'll just lead. He looks at him and he goes, I see a strength in you. I saw that same kind of a strength last Saturday when our former president stood up. What am I looking for? I guess when I'm thinking about, all these the debates and everything, I'm really looking for this. Yes, of course, I'm looking for the truth. Who is telling us the truth about what's really happening in the world? But I'm also looking to see who believes that we have a creator. It's not twisting scripture to try to fit their agenda, but believes we have a creator and is willing to follow him, to develop policy around those things. I'm not going to apologize for what I believe. I do believe that the Bible is the Word of God. Absolutely, I do. And so anything that I'm looking at to do when I'm looking at policy or who I'm going to be voting for, I'm watching the entire party. Are they on board with following God? Now, I don't know that you can say that every person that's in the Republican or the Democratic Party leans this way or leans that way, whatever it is. But I do really listen closely to our leaders. I'm going to be watching both conventions. I watched the RNC last week, watched it every single night, watched everything that everybody had to say. I'm going to do the same thing with the DNC when it comes out. I'm going to be watching everything. And let's see where the dust settles on all this, because I think any of us that don't do the service of watching both parties, what everybody has to say, weigh it, what they're saying in our own heart, line it up against with what we believe, then we're doing a disservice. We've already chosen who we think it needs to be. Now, you've heard me say I'm really upset, and I am really upset. But I still owe it to the Democratic Party to listen to their speakers, to see what they have to say. What do I line up with? What don't I line up with? Because it's not just about me. It's the people that I'm speaking to. It's my own children. It's my family. I have to know what I believe and then lead my family to follow that. This election right now, no doubt, is the biggest election of my lifetime. I was born before JFK was assassinated, and I remember my mom. I was 3 years old. That's one of my first memories. I can remember her sitting there crying and how much she was shaken by that. When Reagan was shot, I can remember the whole nation going, is he going to live? Is he going to die? What's going to happen here? This is a different animal. And I don't know who the powers are that are pulling so many of the strings, but it's obvious, as we've watched, that our president has been struggling. And to leave him in power, whether it be his family or his party, it's really elder abuse is what it is. He was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. That's where my mom was from. When I was a kid, she used to say, oh, do you know Joe Biden was from Scranton? And there was a pride. It didn't matter what party. This man climbed the ladder. He was making a difference in the world. But things have changed a lot. We see, all the fentanyl, not only with the illegal immigrants coming across the border. Now the number one killer of young people, what is it, under 35, I think it is fentanyl in this country, more than the wars. I mean, what? But we're allowing this stuff to happen. You got sex trafficking. You've got the gangs coming through and all the gang violence. You've got the raping and the murder we're seeing of a lot of these illegal immigrants that are coming across. They're doing all this stuff. So one of the questions that I have to ask, and I think you do too, is how are we going to stop it? And who is willing to stop it? These are big questions. And I know with some of you out there, me even asking it right now is probably offensive to you. Well, guess what? Good. Because you need to be asking these questions. Sometimes you have to push someone a little bit to get them to kind of move off center to go, what was I believing here? What do I really believe? What am I really thinking? And then what am I going to do about it? I think that's one of the choices you have to make. Is this stuff, did it move you enough? Everything you've been watching, has it moved you enough off of center that you're now willing to be able to weigh things out and look at it closely? What is true? What is a lie? And what am I going to do? We got to choose. This assassination attempt, I was watching the hearing today, and you had the director of the Secret Service. She was on there, and she's saying that she's not going to resign. And so what I loved was I saw both parties come together. Now, there were a few people that had maybe an agenda with what they were trying to get across, with some things they want to get past. Okay, go for it. We have that right to be able to say, I don't agree with this, so I'm going to talk about this so we can get things moved to fix this. And there are some problems that have to be fixed, no doubt. You know, when I was a kid, we had gun racks in the back of our vehicles. Never thought about shooting somebody, doing a school shooting. They were for hunting, or God forbid someone broke into your house, right? And then you have that right, your Second Amendment, to protect your family. But it's gotten weird. It's gotten crazy. And you see all this copycat shootings. I remember back when, was it in the 80s? I forget what year it was when that Colorado shooting happened in that school. And it was like it just kind of opened this dam up of copycat shooters and things happening. And I don't know what the answer is with all that. I know what I believe. But one thing I do know is this. Mental illness is one of the big problems that we have in this country. And we do have to spend a lot of time and money and energy on helping people get well. That's a big part of what I've designated so much of my time to, writing books or doing the podcast or working and coaching people, is helping them think through what they're thinking so they can get to the right answer. But some of the questions that I was listening to this morning that we have to look at, because this is bizarre. You had a ladder that was mysteriously there. Where did this AR come from? Did he hide it? You know, this supposedly he flew a drone over that morning. And then I heard today in the hearing that not only that van he had explosives in it, but he had put some explosives near a gas line that he was going to try to cause even more havoc with. My guess would probably be a distraction so he can get out of there. But how did he get there? How did this guy get up on a roof 140 yards away from the possibly soon to become former president? How in the world? And people for minutes, they already spotted the guy like almost an hour before, saying this guy is suspicious. Well, when did he become a threat? Well, you had over 2 minutes before he actually shot the president where people are yelling to the officers and everyone around, there's a guy up on the roof, he's got a gun. And they kept doing it over and over. And it was going through the intercoms with all these guys. They were all hearing it. There's some big questions that have to be answered. But here's the thing that is really bothering me is, you know, all this stuff, this is why so many of us don't trust those who are in power right now, don't trust our government, because we have been lied to so many times, we don't know what's true and what's a conspiracy theory anymore. And so we're kind of left going, what do we do with this? You know, I think that there are some people out there, some bad people, that really believe that the American people are stupid. And the truth is, we're not stupid. We've been asleep. And I really believe that we're finally starting to wake up. No matter which side of this you might fall on, I guess I would just hope that you will look at all this stuff and lay some of your opinions aside and look at what the facts are. And then start making some decisions. Bring your family into it. Bring your friends into it. But don't go down the path like that one guy that says, oh, it's too bad they missed. You know, I've seen this stuff on social media nonstop. During the RNC, I even watched one man sit there and mock every single person that came up on the stage to talk. Even the one mother who lost her child, and she was upset, crying. And I'll never forget, this person just posted, well, that was some great comedic relief. I'm like, really? Not a whole lot that really gets under my skin like this. I know this is a totally different podcast than you've ever heard me say. Could be the last one you ever hear me say like this. But I just really felt like I needed to say, wake up. Do not be silent anymore. You don't have to be mean, but you do have to be truthful. So we have to take everything and we have to weigh it all out. And if some of you guys are like me, being in ministry and doing this kind of stuff, I'm really careful about the kind of stuff that I talk about. This I know for Eric right now, he's probably sitting there going, holy cow, what did he just open up? It's something that I couldn't be quiet about. When Hulk Hogan was on the other night, and he says, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to, slit my throat with what I do, by taking a side or something. Well, the side that I'm taking is the side of truth. Who is telling us the truth? And I cannot be quiet. So I want to kind of come back to the thing that I always say at the end of these podcasts, and it's this. That when a man knows who he is in Christ, that he's been created in the image of the living God, when he is no longer held captive by the opinions of others or cares whether he lives or dies, that man is now extremely dangerous for good, because he's been unleashed. Do not allow fear to hold you back. Do not allow lies to control your family and our nation. Get involved. Let your voice be heard, for your strength is needed now more than ever. And pray for our leaders, all of them. I really do believe that our country depends upon it. But more than that, we need God. We'll see you next time.